Welcome to the Supporters Fund, Ask an Investor. I'm your host, Jeffery Potvin. Today, let's please welcome Cam Crowder. How are you, sir?
Doing great, JP. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, we're super excited to have you here today. There's a million reasons why I'm excited to have this conversation, from working in franchise to owning and operating businesses to selling properties. Like, there's so many great things that you're up to and that you're doing. But more importantly, now the stuff that you're working on the VC world, which to me is super exciting too. So I think we'll take a step back. And the way we like to kind of kick off our show is we want to learn a little bit about yourself, your background, kind of the things that you've been doing that got you where you are today. And then one thing about you that nobody would know.
Ooh, okay. For me, I spent 12 years in the Tim Hortons franchise world. The last seven in the last franchise world was as franchisee, and really enjoyed that. And kind of where I saw the industry going was that turnover was getting crazy. We were 100% turnover a year. And, I was looking at different avenues to kind of like help that in the business, and which led me to a company that was a Silicon Valley company that actually moved to Windsor, that was doing industrial time studies, and got involved in the tech side with that, and kind of led to an investment there. And all of a sudden I'm an angel investor, and I just fell in love with it. So fast forward 2 years, now I'm at Venture University here out in Silicon Valley.
Amazing. And one thing about you that no one would know.
One thing about me that no one knows. I do Pilates in the morning.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. A good way to get the body moving.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what got you started in Pilates?
I just kind of started working out pretty heavy, and then I like to push myself. So I kind of was like, what's the hardest thing I could do? And looked at Pilates as a 6'3", 225-pound guy. I figured it would be probably the hardest thing for me to do, and just started doing it. And it's been great. It's good for my back, and keeps me in shape, and it's a good sweat.
Well, you mentioned that it's good for your back, so I'm going to, for the audience, I'm going to share that you were also, and have been, and I believe you're still active today as a hockey coach, and you were a player as well. Is that correct to say?
Yeah, I played junior hockey, and then got involved in coaching. Did that while I was doing Tim Hortons for like 10, 12 years. Not coaching anymore. I'm still an owner with the Leamington Flyers junior B team there. And we do a lot of good things, just trying to, help develop players, men. We've had a couple players move on to Division I scholarships. So it's a good way to give back to a sport that gave a lot to me, growing up.
Amazing. I also played hockey, junior hockey, way back in the day. So I'm a big fan of the space and area. And there was one thing, and I was, interestingly enough, I kept seeing your last name, and I'm like, I think that's an NHL hockey name. This is big. And it always teared in my mind. But I think what I liked about all of the things that I kind of read and learned about yourself is that as an athlete, you also became a coach, and now you coach businesses and you help people. So you took a lot of your learning going through hockey, and we'll call it as being maybe the driver to a lot of this, is that you took the learnings that you had working in a sport you loved, found a way to go in front of everybody by being the coach, and now you're on the opposite side of that. All this learning that you're getting, how much do you translate that into this entrepreneurial side of things? It sounds like it's got to be pretty incredible to kind of drive that.
JP, 100%. Like that, I would say I might have learned more coaching than I did in Tim Hortons. And a lot of that was just like, when you're coaching, your business is in the paper every week. Like your pants are completely down, and they know how well you're doing. And there's kind of like, the one part for me was that I really understood or learned through the process of coaching of just like how to like get a group together. And coming from sport, like as a head coach, like that's probably the most important thing, is that everybody's on the same page. You need to be organized every day. And if you're not organized, the players read into that immediately. And I think for me in my journey coaching, it was like, get organized, make sure you have a plan. A lot of those things kind of led into my business career getting better because I was doing those things. And what's more fun to do than, be a hockey coach and be involved in junior hockey and play a playoff run, go get in a playoff run and stuff like that. So learned a ton, and it's still nice to be able to be involved in it as an owner. And, not that I missed a lot of games recently, I'm out here in San Francisco, but you always check the stats, and it's always good to see a young coach like we have there, Dale Mitchell, excel. So sports is everything to me, to be honest, when it gets down to it. So many life lessons in it.
Well, I love that. And in being a young individual playing hockey and you look up to your coach, to me, they were kind of like the god. I didn't really, the players were great. Yeah, that guy's a superstar, et cetera. It never really impressed me. It was about the strategy and how the coach would approach every game. And to me, it looked like, man, that's got to be a stressful job because he is the focal point, or at least it was for me looking up to that person. I'm 15, 14 years old, looking up to my junior A coach or whatever. And I'm thinking, man, this person's got to be so knowledgeable. And they're really directing, and they're that conductor in the room. How did you find that you were able to take that learning from being the young guy in the room and trying to learn from them, and now flipping the stage around and saying, I got to teach these young people to kind of get together to my plan so that we can execute and win this at the end? That's got to be pretty tough to get 30 people to align to your initiatives, because it really comes down to the team's there to win, but I'm sure they're too young to really understand how that comes together. And your job is to really drive that home. And to me, that's got to be quite the amazing effort to be able to pull that off year after year.
Yeah, I think first of all, when I first started coaching, I wasn't a very good coach, and it was like a learned ability that I kind of like over time, just kept getting better, iterating and getting better. But I think the biggest thing I learned was every single person on the team has to have a role, and you need to celebrate those roles. So like, even if you had, your first line left winger, the guy that scores 50, yeah, it's great. But like, you also need the guy to kill penalties and block shots, and you need the trainer to be on board, and you need the guy that's filling up the water bottles to have good culture. And I think that all those things is you try to like really highlight when someone does something well in their role, and when they're not meeting the expectations there, that you need to give them a pat on the butt and say like, hey, time to pick it up here. This is how we do things here. And I think that, again, for business, it's no different. Everybody has roles. Everybody needs to execute on their job. And hockey is no different in learning that.
I love that. Every person has a role, and you need to celebrate that role. I think that's a great line, because I think a lot of the times in early stage businesses, when we're building them, we tend to overlook the people that are on the team. We overlook the fact that every piece of this hiring process is instrumental to your success. So just like it is in getting that third line left winger to up their game, even though they're playing 10 minutes a game instead of 30, that 10 minutes is so crucial. And how do you get them to feel just as empowered to put the Excel outcome that you need in order to win and get to that end goal, which is winning it all? So tying that team down, cohesiveness is pretty important. How did you go about doing that? How did you get everybody in the team to feel just as important? And maybe you didn't do it in year one, but year 5, when you were having that success, what was the driving force behind it?
I think it's culture, right? Like, I think it's like every day living it, walking it. And I think, maybe me, like I wasn't really a super high end guy. I was probably in that second, third line kind of guy, grind it out. So I appreciate the people that are doing the things that are difficult to do. And in business, it's no different. Like, there's blocking, like the old, cliche blocking and tackling, right? And like, it's not the fancy stuff that typically gets it done. It's the things that, are ugly and messy. And, when things aren't going well, you got to get in there and dig in. And you just need to really, like I said, celebrate when those things, when they maybe feel like they're small, celebrate the heck out of them, right? And then that builds your culture up. And business, hockey, it's the same thing.
Does that go to the coach to put together initiatives, goals? So this is the same thing for the founder, the CEO, the group, to put together those metrics that will allow people to hit those successes. And then, at the end of the day, celebrate them every time. Go out for drinks, do whatever it takes.
Yeah, you got it. Like KPIs, right? Like, you wouldn't walk and be like, hey, guys, we're KPIs, OKRs, like, here we go. Let's, but like, an example in hockey that we do is we want to be a physical team. So we would, track our hits. Everybody's hits would be posted on a board. We know like how many shots they blocked. And like, we really put a focus on being hard to play against. And I think it's the same thing in a business. You want your business to be gritty. You want the people, especially in the startup world, it's all hands on deck. You can have the title of a CEO or CFO, but when you're early, like, you're doing everything. You're taking the garbage out, right? And you need to make sure that you're celebrating those things. And I was lucky to be able to experiment both in the business side and hockey side and make mistakes and learn from them. And that's how you get better.
Like that, and totally agree. And you've talked about putting KPIs together to help you enhance the ability for your team to come together. Should this start right from day one then, as an early entrepreneur, that you should start looking for this type of coaching experience from somebody that can kind of guide this? Because maybe a young founder might not look at the world the same way and think, you know what, we need structure and process right now. Well, we're only us, boss. It's just the two of us. So how do you get people to really say, you know what, yeah, we're only two, but this is the best time to do this? If we start to build in this process and show our KPIs and have these wins, we'll carry this through our culture. And you know what, in 5 years, when we're 500 people, we'll have built in such a nice, clean data process that the numbers are going to speak for themselves.
Yeah, I think, like when we grew up, especially sports, it was like the coach told you what to do or your boss told you what to do and you just accepted it. And I think that we're in a different world now. So you need to show not only what you can do for your team or your company, but you also have to show the individual like how they're going to succeed and what it's going to be for them and what they're going to get out of that. And, whether you're in a company and you're looking at, in the Tim Hortons world, like we really tried to develop young people into different higher positions. We had a lot of people that became doctors and, psychologists and, engineers and things like that. And that's a win. They're moving on to something bigger. But at the same time, they're adding value to our company and, making drive-through times faster. And the hockey side, it's the same thing. You want to make sure that they're playing within the team structure, but you also want to make sure that they're putting their points up so they can get a scholarship or they can move on to the OHL or wherever their dreams are. Like that's the two-headed monster, I think, in the world we're in, that we need to have the team or the business side. And we also need to make sure we're highlighting the individual now.
I like that you mentioned where the dreams are. So even to the young professional that you're working with in hockey or in the startup world, they have somewhere that they want to be. So they wanted to be a doctor or whatever that might be. And you mentioned that the world has changed. So are people looking at themselves now when they're going to play on a hockey team that they've got stats they want to hit? You mentioned counting body checks. So is there players on the team that they have body checks, passes, corner, maybe how many times they win the corner, whatever those stats are that really emphasize them because they want to get a scholarship to this university and they need these numbers. So your goal is to say your job is just this. And now you can put a reel together that says, you know what, in the last 45 games, I have been in the corner 682 times. I've got the puck out 60 of those times, et cetera, et cetera. Is that where the world's going to when it comes down to statistically utilizing data to prove why I'm valuable? Because I'm kind of thinking when I was playing junior, it was, man, that guy really got in the corner hard. Yeah, oh, he's fast.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't think there was so much emphasis on my statistics on how many times I dug the puck out of the corner. It was like how fast I got into the corner. So I'm kind of wondering if it's really shifted a lot in saying, hey, man, I need to build some real value here. And the only way I'm going to succeed and get to that scholarship is you need to help me make my numbers. That's what's most important to me. And that's how I want to drive this relationship. Is that kind of what's happening nowadays?
Yeah, I think like there's so much ability to grab knowledge from anything, right? So like these kids are smart. Like they know like what avenue they need to do. They know like probably more about coaching like than most coaches because they can just go on and see what a good coach is. Like literally they can go onto a website and find out. So I think that, you need to have if you measure things, it gets better, right? In anything. So if you're putting a focus on, if you've got a third line guy he's going to need to be a good penalty killer to move up, like you need to find metrics that are going to help him understand whether he's doing a good job or a bad job. And maybe taking the penalty kill number or your EBITDA in a business isn't granular enough to really dive into a specific role. So I think it's important that you know your stuff. And then I think it's important that you communicate that to the player or the employee or the founder or whatever you're dealing with of like how they get to where they need to go and what little details are going to, drive those success factors.
I think that's brilliant. And it really, the reason why I think this really makes a lot of value for every employee is that every employee can start to now become accountable to the data or the value that they're bringing to the business. So I sent 300 emails this month.
I have replied to this, I have done these things. Because I think a lot of people lose the attention span on where they fit into a company, and they become this cog in the wheel or this mouse on the mousetrap reeling around in circles, and they get bothered by the fact that they're not producing an outcome. But I think they all are producing outcomes. They just have never found a way to actually put metrics to it to prove why they're valuable. So when they're going to apply for that next role, they can say, yes, I was a customer service rep, but I took over 5,000 calls last year. I helped close over 4,999 of those calls. Wow, that's impressive. And that's in the 1 percentile of customer service reps at this time. So maybe there is a lot to this data knowledge that you get from hockey and KPIs that you can bring through business, that people can start to focus on. How do I build metrics around what I'm doing to keep proving that I bring a lot of value? Because I think this comes down to any business being successful is, like you said, it's every single individual and how they really make up this whole as a business and drive that business forward.
Yeah, I think it's like, beginning with the end in mind. So you have to take all the pieces you have and find out what they're good at. And then you need to find a way to measure it and then put the puzzle pieces together. Right. And, whether it's you're setting your budgets in your company, for your next year, or you're a coach and you're setting up your next season, like you really want to think about what kind of players you have or employees you have on your team. And then how do you maximize it? How do you get the goals that you're trying to attain as an organization? And how do the people inside of that, how are they going to help you get there? And then people like to know what they're working towards. And I think that if you kind of like frame it in that way, and then give them metrics, monthly or weekly or whatever you're looking to attain, it just gives them a sense of like that they're accomplishing something, right? And you're not like looking up at like this big mountain that you have to tackle the whole thing, in one piece. It's like break it up into small pieces and break it up into the people that are going to do those specific tasks and benchmark them. And I've had success doing that, and I continually try to improve that. With incentives and things like that.
And that's a great segue into what you ended up doing when you started working and building out the licensing model and franchising model at Tim Hortons. Everything is refined process. Everything is about being really tight-nipped to your end goal, which is usually metrics and numbers. So when you got into this space, what were the learnings that you got from being a franchisee, franchise owner? What was the big learnings, maybe one or two of them, that really emphasized that tenure that you did when you were in that process? Was it focus? Was it team? What really emphasized that experience?
It's definitely team. Like, I mean, the Tim Hortons world kind of changed when 3G brought it. So we were very like cowboy, old school kind of like, way to do it. And then when 3G came in, it became very data centered. Right. And I think that was a good thing for me because it started, I'm a numbers guy. So I really like to be able to, put visibility on different things. And when they came in, they had this, they called it like a global positioning system that essentially was like a scorecard out of 100 of how your restaurants are operating. So you could see your deficiencies really easy on this scorecard that, they really factored into different metrics for us as a franchisee. So once you started to get that like kind of program in there, you just kind of like started to realize if I pull this lever, this is going to go up. If I pull this lever, this is going to go down. And you kind of really understand, what's driving customer satisfaction, what's driving your sales, like how do you make that better? How do you get your drive-through times down? Like different things like that. So I think that would be the biggest thing is like the visibility on different parts of your business, and then different actions or corrective actions you're using that are kind of moving it up or down, and you just learn from it. Right. And I always use the example, like I probably need to touch my hand on the stove to learn instead of, someone telling me that stove's hot. Right.
And everybody has a different way of learning. So you're creating muscle memory by the reaction that you got from the learning, whereas others would just have this fear of going near it and never really experience it. But in their mind, they're like, no, that's bad. So everybody has a different way of learning. I probably tend to say I would be the same way. I'd be like, oh yeah, it's going to burn my hand. Yeah, it did burn my hand. But it's more of how much did it burn my hand? Could I gloss my hand across this instead next time and still be able to do this. And then you test the limits because you're always trying to figure out, like you said, speed times, all these different things always come into your head around metrics. I love the data side. Brain works that same way, but it's optimization, fixing, changing, improvements. And I think that plays a big role when you're a franchisee, because you're always trying to reduce your overhead costs, reduce the problems that can occur before they do, and focus on that end goal once again, which is how do I get the most dollars out of the least amount of effort, et cetera, throughout that process you're building.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a great thing about the franchise. They really, they teach you the systems of like how, like, you can't have a franchise as successful as Tim Hortons without some really solid systems in place. Right. And, it's good to learn that. But on the other side is that, like, you kind of can't, it's more of managing the business, right? And there's not a lot of like growing of it, because essentially is, the demand is the demand. You can get them through a little bit quicker. But it is about cost controls and labor cost and food cost and paper cost. And, it's an interesting business to get into, and it's a great way to learn how to run a solid, well-oiled machine business.
I like that. And anything you can get learning to learn how to better operate is going to be very important to anything you do in the future. Operational people are tough to find. So learning these types of things and the ropes are going to help you, especially number crunching and figuring out where these little nuances you can correct and clean up so that you can make your business more valuable. In the long run, it's also going to be very helpful for any founder, especially if you're going to kick off and start your own thing. Which kind of moves you into, after leaving the franchise and moving into that space, you mentioned that you started to get into the angel investing side. Maybe you can share a little bit what actually transpired to get you looking at angel deals. And now you've been in it for a couple of years, and you seem to be loving it and taking it to the next level. So what was kind of that driving force behind it?
Yeah, like, honestly, when I was running Timmy's, like, I didn't even know what angel investing was probably 3 years ago, like, at all. And I got involved with that Silicon Valley company, and we were working, daily. The one founder was a 30 under 30 Forbes guy, really, really smart technical person. And I just kind of fell in love with, like, this idea, like, creating technology, and made an investment in their company. And the Weekend Group in Windsor kind of found out about it, and they invited me into the Equation Angel Group. And being around some really smart people there, I got excited about the deal flow and things, and I put my hand up and said, if they need anything to be done, like, I'm happy to help out, which led to me getting involved in the selection committee and really, meeting you there, and, like, kind of seeing really, like, how you start to, like, filter through these companies. And just, again, like, I got kind of curious and got, okay, hold on here. How do I get involved in this world? And, which led to, okay, different avenues of, like, okay, ventures seems like that's the way to do it. And, I've been lucky to have some people kind of help me and guide me along the way there in Equation Angels that have steered me in the direction of, Venture University here out in Silicon Valley. And it's been great. Like, the people in this industry are outstanding, and it's a very different type of dynamic of, it seems like everybody's kind of out to help you, especially in the angel community, right? It's very, like, collaborative, and I've engaged in it. Yeah.
I'll completely agree with that. And I think anybody that is, when you start to get into a small knit community and you start to work your way around, you start to learn new things, you see how people adapt. There's some people that have built their process and maybe they don't want to change it, but they're still learning there. And there's a great way to kind of expand. But you got the bug, you got this interest to say, wait a sec, this is great here, but how do I make it here? Or how do I make this bigger? So treating it just like an entrepreneur would, and evaluating what this opportunity in this space is. And for me, it was looking at 1 in 10 only succeed. This is terrible. Why is this? I got to change this. I need to be 9 out of 10 are successful. This is where the numbers should be. This gap is so big. How do we kind of work our way to get to a better win? And I think that's going to take years. It's going to take a lot of learning, a lot of understanding, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. I had one investor tell me the power rule and beat me up on it. And you can't do this and you can't do that. And this is how it's this. And I just looked at it and thought, I love it. If you need to explain to me why there's no way and chance in hell that we can ever be better than 1 in 10,
there's a chance that we can change this and I'm going to work my ass off to make it happen. And your brain just goes to that there is a problem and this is solvable, even if we nudge it but to 2 out of 10 or 3 out of 10, and every year you get a little bit better. I think that's where the excitement goes. And I think that's where where we've connected is that I see that in your eyes. You're like, yes, there's a big opportunity here. And it's not just 1 out of 10.
Yeah. And like where you kind of talked, like it's sort of like a cross section of like coaching and business. And, it's, I'm with you. Like, it's very baseball like, right? You bat 300, you're in the Hall of Fame. And it reminds me a lot, like the startup community is the same thing. Like you have to be okay with failing and get comfortable with it. And I think that that's probably the biggest thing is that maybe sometimes investors or, entrepreneurs that it's 1 out of 10 because I think that there is so much risk and maybe it weighs on people. Right. And I think that there's a way, like you said, there's a way to solve this problem. And you see a lot of stuff and different data on startups. And you see some of these startups that are actually starting to put metrics towards startups. And, for me, I think it's like, hey, listen, find the right markets and invest in the right people that are like hungry and they're going to climb over those hurdles. And I think that that's really what it comes down to is like hungry people that aren't going to stop until they get to where they need to go. And how do you find those people, right? Like where are they developed and how can you help them, overcome those things? That's a cool thing about angel investing in VCs. You get to be a part of that, right?
So true. And, I would look at it as Michael Jordan, right? He had the 6th gear, just this extra gear. And it wasn't just him. It was every elite athlete, every elite investor, every elite person always has this one extra gear that you just didn't see it coming. And then boom, they threw it into that drive and you were like, man, wow. Like you just, it's yours, take it, go. And you just know that that's where that's going. And those are the types of founders you're looking for. They're the ones that are going to see through it, work through it, and make it happen. And then there's the investor side, which is the same way, right? They have to be able to envision that exact same process happening to that founder before that founder even knows it's happening to them.
And that's like, for me as an investor, like, I'm new to this, but I really tried to add value as much as I can, even if I'm like, in a startup pitch and it's not going anywhere for me, I'm not getting curious. Like I always ask at the end, like, hey, how can I add value to you? Right. And I think that that's sort of like the thing is that, you have to put the reps in and do the work to be able to have that second gear that you talk about. Like the stories about Michael Jordan and like the workouts at his house and things like that. Like if you put the work in, you just have a different level of confidence that you can go to that other people, if they've only done 75% of it, can't get to that level. Right. And you got to immerse yourself in it and you got to be all in. And I think that that's, a good case of successful founders. Like they're all in. They're not looking to squirm out of it and turn a different avenue. Like they are all in on their business and their opportunity that they found. And it's just cool to kind of see someone that does those things and be a part of that. And if you can lend a little help towards, don't make this mistake, I made this one, or don't do this. It's kind of neat to be able to see them succeed.
Agreed. And when looking at the success that you've had over time and the things that you've worked along in this entrepreneurial experience and the hockey side of things, how much do you feel that hockey and your sports mentality has helped you kind of steer through a lot of this stuff, the drive that you have, that extra gear? Maybe it is only in sports people. I'm not sure. I would assume a lot of people have it. But do you think that gear comes from that competitive angle and that's really a strong value that you can look for in a founder? I probably haven't gone to the extent of asking someone, a startup founder, and saying, hey, do you play sports? What sports team did you play for? Okay, yeah you're investable because you knew how to play college ball. But I did hear this a long time ago when I was first starting off in my career. Someone had said, I only hire sports people. And I was like, really? Why is that? Because they have a competitive edge. They know what it takes to win. And I was like, okay, fair enough. Now, fast forward, the world's different today. Are people still looking for that competitive edge? And is that competitive edge come from the grind or does it come from knowledge and data now?
Yeah, I think sports is funny, especially hockey, because you play so many games, right? So like you're not going to go, if you play 50 games in a junior hockey season, like you're not going 50-0. Right. I think it allows you to kind of like learn quickly, like how to fail. And then like, how do you pick yourself up and not lose 2 in a row? Like that was a big thing for me when I coach, is like, hey, if we lose 1, that's okay. Not okay, but we'll deal with it, but we don't lose 2 in a row. Like now you need to really dial in to make sure that you aren't losing 2 in a row. And I think that like you said, whether your back's against the wall and like, how do you come out of that? Or you're down 4 goals going into the third period. Like you're not going to get it all. There's no 4-pointers in hockey. You got to chip away at it. Right. And that mentality of like, hey, like I'm just going to chip away at this thing until it gets to a point. Shawshank Redemption. Right. Here in San Francisco, I went to Alcatraz, and they have that story. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's pretty much like the Shawshank Redemption cell. Have you heard about this? The guy with a spoon carved it out, and they asked him like how long did it take, and he's like, as long as it took. Right? That's the thing, right? Like once you set your mark on something, I think that it's just like, hey, I'm going to chip away at this thing. And I think sports people have that, because at some point you've had your back against the wall, you've lost, or you've been in a tough situation, and you've seen a group come together. And kind of like at the end, like look at the Rams in the playoffs this year. Right. They kind of were like known as a team that just, they always found a way to make it work. Right. And sports is a good avenue. A lot of times in high level academics, I think you may get the same type of thing, but in sports is just, you're involved in team, and it's just a great way to learn and fail and understand how you overcome things.
I love that chipping away and the analogy. One of the top movie questions and watched movies is actually Shawshank Redemption. It's probably sitting at a 34% favorite movie for all investors. So well shared on that side. Yes, it's
one of those ones, when it's on TV, you just can't shut it off. It's a tough one. It pops up and it's like, 4 hours long when it's on TV with commercials and everything. You're up till 3 a.m. watching Shawshank, but it's my
No, I completely agree with that. But I think what comes out of that is it's the chipping away. It's reorganizing, it's understanding the pressure, it's understanding what you need to do and just get it done and move it forward and move the dial and everything about that chipping away, that mentality. And you learn that.
And the story of like Andy, right? Like he didn't do it. He didn't do it. The circumstances he was dealt wasn't his fault, really. Like at the end of the day, maybe a little bit, right? But he took full accountability and he dug himself out of it, right? And I think that that's like a big thing in business, is that like take accountability no matter what. Even if you feel it wasn't your fault, take accountability for it and find a way to get out of it. Right.
Love it. I love it. So now you're working on Venture University, and you're kind of getting this whole new angle of from angels to now the venture capital side. And just before we transition into the story, a quick story, maybe you share a little bit about what your experience is on the VC side versus the angel side. What types of things are interesting you more now from coming in as an individual, working as a team, as a larger group, to come in and invest in a company, now looking at it from a VC side? What are some of the things that stand out the most to kind of give the audience a good understanding of the difference between venture capital and angel?
I think the biggest thing is just like, it's a business, right? It's professionalism. And I think for me, when one of the reasons I came here was like, my buddies were starting to see that I was investing in companies, and they were like, hey, I'm going to throw you some money to do this. And I was like, listen, perfect. I love it. I know that's great. You guys trust me, but I need to get a little more professionalized in the way I go about this if I'm going to like take other people's money. And I think in venture, the biggest thing I've learned here is that, coming from a sports background, we talked about culture and people and overcoming things. I think I have a good grasp on that, but I think on the side of like, how do you get returns and what are you looking for? That's what Venture University has been great for. Like, we don't here invest in any market less than $10 billion, because their mindset is sort of like, okay, if I invest in a market, small market that's only, $10 million market, you're looking at 1,000 times difference between 10 to 10 billion, or whatever it is, 10,000 times different. Are human beings 10,000 times better than another human being? Probably not. So that's sort of where like their footings at, is like, let's look at the market size first, really take a bottoms up approach to it. And then we can go through the founder and the operation, the team and things like that. So that was probably the biggest thing that I've taken so far from this is like, hey, market size, then start looking at the founders and things like that.
I love it. And when you're looking at the market size, you're also going to find out competitors. You're going to get a really good understanding of where this business is going to sit today. But the key to all of this is scaling and where it's going to sit in the next 5 years. And is this something unique enough that in 5 years they can own a good portion of this? And like anything, when it becomes a monetary fiscal thing, the more money you throw at it, the more opportunity you can create to take more space. And is this something that you can process the shit out of? This will probably be the first time I've swore on my podcast, but is that is that something that you can do? Yeah. Oh, it's coming. It's good. It's good, I guess. But is that how you create that process and really commercialize this business by looking at that opportunity and saying, here's the market size, but in 5 years we can blitz scale, we can scale this business and throw a lot of money at it so that in 5-10 years, this can be the juggernaut that needs to own this space.
Yeah. And I think like especially the group here, like being around Andrew Zaslin and Skylar Fernandez, like they've been in the industry for a super long time. So they're good at kind of like understanding where it's going. Like we've invested in a lot of space companies recently. It's kind of like interesting to be able to like look at some of these companies of like, shooting rockets off the space and like how they're creating platforms and, different things that are almost like we were looking at a company, 2 days ago, it's like AWS for space. And you're like, okay, how does that work? And then, like you said, you're looking like, hey, what's 5 years down the road? How many people are going to be up there? What's going to be the industries? They got the new space station up there. How many satellites are going to be up there? Like you really need to take that bottoms up approach to it and dig in. And it's been great to kind of learn that from them and, bring things to investment committees and different structures like that. So it's been cool to see, I'm looking at our portfolio companies right now. Like we have this company that's like doing contact lenses that are AR. Like didn't even know that existed before I got here, but like they're saying in 5 years, it's going to be huge. So it's interesting to see those type of companies, right?
I completely agree with that. And I think that gives a good idea to the division between angel, early stage, and what VCs are looking at. And VCs are, jumping on top of that, hopefully series, seed, pre-seed, no, not pre-seed, at least seed or pre-series A and jumping in and dumping in a lot of money into some pretty amazing advanced tech companies. And that's not just in the US, Israel, all around the world. There's some pretty amazing centers that were really driving out innovation. And it's pretty cool that you're able to be part of that.
Yeah, it's every once in a while I'll pinch myself. It's weird. It's kind of weird when I go home to my wife after a day here because I'm like, should I tell her about this stuff? Because it's like, does she even want to know about this stuff? Like where this is going, right? So it's definitely interesting having conversations with people about work, what you're doing. But it's cool to see. It's almost like you're working in the future almost. Like you see a lot of cool stuff and a lot of interesting that people put their whole lives on the line for something it seems like it's, the Jetsons, but the reality is it's here, right? It's going to be here soon. So it's cool.
Agreed. Well, we're going to transition now into a little bit of a kind of more like a case study, but in the time that you've been working in this space, have you come across any startup founder, she or he, that really kind of blew your mind on, you didn't think that they were going to be able to, take this company and make it successful or whatever the story might be. But the real thing that we're looking for is what it shows to be an entrepreneur. I think that's what we're really looking for is what does it take to be an entrepreneur these days? And is there any story that you can share with us that really kind of defines that?
I haven't been in it long enough to see like something that came across, a startup get pitched. It's $1 billion idea yet, which I'm sure you've seen a bunch of those, right? Like what do they call it? The anti-portfolio or whatever kind of stuff. But I don't know. I'm really interested in like the people that I liked. I always ask the question, like, what brought you to this idea and what made you put everything on the line? I think that's really the interesting thing of there's so many different ways that people came to the idea that they're targeting. And like, when I look at like, it could be a guy that was in the automotive industry and found like a little crack in a way to make money, or it could be a guy from the automotive industry that moved into a totally different industry and thought, I can do this. And, so that's a cool part. The one company that kind of comes to mind since I've been out here is this company called Versus Games that, I did a bunch of due diligence on them, and I was just amazed of how the founder like skirted the line of the law in 50 states. And it just blew me away. And I even to the point where I like emailed the founder after. I was like, dude, I'm amazed of how you did this. And he's like, right. And I'm like, yeah, like you put the work in to understand the law, and you put the work in to make sure that it was like successful. So like to give some context, like have you heard about Versus Games at all? Yeah. So it's like it's essentially a gambling app, but it's not a gambling app. It's like a carnival game. That's how they skirted the law, is that it's an entrance fee to be able to bet with someone else on anything. So whether it's about, Leonardo DiCaprio winning the Oscar or Matt Stafford winning the MVP, influencers can pose a question, and then two people get paired up on each side of it. So, when you first look at it, you're like, oh my God, the risk here for this is huge. And then you start reading the law and how they're doing it. It's like, wow, that is impressive of how you've gone about it. So I guess that would be the most interesting thing for me is like, man, some of these people are so smart and innovative and gritty. And like, it's really cool to see that like in action, right?
Their drive for success overcomes all barriers. They're able to work their way around everything because they can see the end goal, which is vision. And I think that focus is incredible to have in a founder and invest in a company that is able to see where they want to be and work everything they can to learn about all of that aspect of it to make sure they get there. So it's pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. It's inspiring, right? Like sometimes I'm just like, man, I should start my own company, but it's cool to be involved in so many companies. It kind of gives the best of both worlds, right?
Completely agree with that. It's wearing many hats, and you can have 1 minute a founder talking about the next round, and another founder talking about oversubscribing, and another founder trying to figure out how they keep their business from failing. So it is a pretty dynamic industry and space to be in. Totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, now we're going to transition into our rapid fire questions. All right. So the way it works, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to start on the business side. So coming in as an investor, pick one or the other. Ready to roll?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Question 1, founder or co-founder?
Founder.
Unicorn or 4-year 10x exit?
Unicorn.
Tech or consumer CPG?
Tech.
NFTs or Web 3.0?
Web 3.0.
AI or blockchain?
Oh, blockchain.
First time founder or second, third time founder?
Second, third.
First money in or Series A?
First money in.
Angel or VC?
Ooh, VC.
Board seat or observer?
Board seat.
Safe or convertible note?
Convertible.
Lead or follow?
Lead.
Equity or interest payments?
Equity.
Favorite part of investing?
The founders.
Number of companies invested per year?
5.
Any preferred terms?
No.
Verticals of focus?
Probably AI.
2 qualities a startup requires in order to stand out for you to invest?
Market size and grittiness of the founder.
Market and grittiness. Like it. All right, we're going to jump into the personal side. Book or movie?
Book.
Superman or Batman?
Batman.
Restaurant or picnic?
Restaurant.
5 minutes with Bezos or Oprah?
Bezos.
Mountain or beach?
Mountain.
Bike or run?
Bike.
Big Mac or Chicken McNuggets?
Big Mac.
Trophy or money?
Trophy.
Beer or wine?
Old me, beer, wine now.
All right. Camera or mobile phone?
Mobile phone.
King or rich?
King.
Concert or amusement park?
Concert.
Fortune cookie, birthday cake?
Birthday cake.
TED Talk or book reading?
Book reading.
Most famous person that pops in your mind right now?
Ray Bork.
Nice. Favorite movie or character you would play?
Andy from Shawshank.
All right. First brand that pops into your mind?
Supporters.
Oh, nice. That's the first. Red button rate. We're ringing the bell. It's good. That's good. Favorite book?
Atomic Habits.
All right. What is the meaning of success to you?
Maximizing your potential.
And what is your superpower?
My superpower. Probably people, reading people, culture, creating culture.
I love it. Well, Cam, I want to thank you very much for all your time today. Shared a lot of great insight, took lots of great notes, and I think you're on an amazing path to being able to support, invest from all levels as an angel and as a VC. Pretty exciting to get the opportunity to catch you now before you become a famous VC. In the meantime, I want to thank you again for all your time. And the way that we like to end our show is that we like to give you the opportunity to share anything you want to say to founders or to investors. But we turn it over to you. And again, thank you very much for all your time today.
Yeah, not much to say, honestly. JP, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it and getting to know you better. And honestly, just looking forward to getting involved in early stage companies and, trying to build some things, especially in Canada. I think we have so much talent there that I'm excited to see some things that are coming out of Canada, and hopefully I can help, nurture those businesses and get involved with them and help build them.
I love it. And how can people get a hold of you if they're trying to get a hold of you?
You can hit me up on Twitter, Cam8Crowder, or my email, cam@gbiholding.ca.
Okay, that was a great conversation with Cam. One, when you tie sports into anything, it gets pretty exciting because they have the competitiveness. They understand what competitors are like. They also know the gears you got to turn on in order to make yourself that much stronger, harder, faster, quicker in all those aspects. So I just love the fact that he's got the coaching background, player, coach, and then, of course, working through Tim Hortons and licensing. So much great stuff there that he was able to share around the hiring, around having KPIs and statistics, professionalism, being able to make sure you market first, be a market ready business. How big is this market? 10 billion or more. I think there's a lot of good things that really come out of being on that angel VC side, as he explained. But again, Cam, great insights, and thank you for diving into that and sharing all of this. So thank you for joining us today. If you've enjoyed this conversation, please feel free to share with your friends or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and or Stitcher. Your support and comments are truly appreciated. You can also check us out at supportersfund.com, or for startup events, visit opn.ninja. Thank you and have a fantastic day.